All right, so in this session, we're going to be talking about essentially just the content tool and everything it can do, how to fill it out for your course, and then the different items under the upload/create button. And then next week, we'll talk more about the existing activities button and like assignments, discussions, quizzes. So we are going to just get started with my shared screen once I get that up. Okay. Alrighty. We should be seeing my Brightspace page, Riley's test course. And here you can see we have our course homepage that we talked about last week. We have our banner, our announcements widget, course faculty widget, course content at a glance, and calendar. Now, the only thing that's different from last week to this week in terms of how this appears is my course content at a glance actually has something in it. So I have two little modules here, and as we'll find in just a few moments, as you create modules in the content tool, and modules are kind of like your chunking tools, essentially, like how to break your content up into different weeks or topics. As you make modules, they will appear here in course content at a glance. And as we discussed last week, this is also how your modules will appear in the Brightspace Pulse app. So as you create modules, you'll see them out here, and then they directly correlate to how it appears in the app as well. So if you're ever curious as to how they look, this is how. And you'll see these little circles off to the right with 0%. These are the indicators for our activity completion that's built into Brightspace. So I'll talk a little bit more about that once we start like adding some content and filling it out, but just wanted to give you a heads up before we dive right into the content tool. So without further ado, I'm going to click up here on content, and it should always be your first link in the green bar. And when you do that, it opens up to probably this overview section. Now, this overview section, as it does say in the title, do not use it after summer 1, 2021. So we should not be using it from this point forward. It's still here because in previous semesters we still used it, so people might still have like a syllabus here. So we didn't want to like delete it in case people deleted their syllabi. But it's going to go away in future iterations of the content tool. So if you just refrain from putting anything in here, like not even a welcome message or no attachments, it will not appear to students. So I think even if I click view as student, I could prove that to be true. If I click on the content after I view as student, I do not see it at all because I put no content in it as a faculty. So if you see that overview section, ignore it, even though it has a very long title and it's kind of hard to ignore. If you put nothing in it, the students won't see it at all, so it won't even be an item for them to interact with. So that's just an aside. It's kind of specific to this summer, to this year even. I'm not sure when the content tool will update for real, but once it does, this overview section will no longer exist. So we just wanted to make everyone aware that that was going to occur. And if you did use this overview section in past semesters, you would probably use it for your syllabus. So we instead say to add a module and name it syllabus so that it's still very, apparent what it is, and then just upload your syllabus to this section. So it's separate for students and they know where to find it at any given time. But are there any questions about that overview or syllabus, whatever? We'll talk about modules, but I just want to make sure that I got that out there. Okay, so starting at the top, ignoring the overview section, we'll pretend it doesn't exist. The bookmarks section is actually personal to you and personal to a user in Brightspace. As you create content, we'll see there's a little bookmark icon in the top right of those activities or resources, and you can bookmark things, students can bookmark things, but they're only bookmarked for yourself. So once we start adding stuff, I'll show you where that button is. But when you do bookmark things, they appear here in the bookmarks part of your content tool, and you can remove them at any time. So if you've already reviewed it enough times as you want, you can just remove it from your bookmarks so that you don't have any. And then the course schedule directly correlates with any of your resources and activities that you assign dates to. And that also goes for your modules. So if you add dates to a module, like we will discuss in just a few minutes, you will see those dates appear here in your course schedule, and students will also see those. You'll only see the upcoming to begin with, so like today, tomorrow, next 7 days. But if you click full schedule and you have dates associated, you should see all those dates kind of ported in here. Now this is dates from like a previous thing I did, so please ignore it. This isn't a real course, but you'll see stuff from your own course. Are there any questions about that?
Go back to course schedule again.
Yeah, we're in it.
All right, so how do you add?
You add it just by adding dates to your items.
What items?
Like your activities and your resources. That we'll talk about in a little bit. I just wanted to go down the line.
Like a due date.
Yeah, like a due date, a start and an end date, if you see those come up, things like that. They'll appear here if there's a date. You can add stuff to the calendar if you like. It's up in, some courses have the date over here on the right, mine does not. But over here in Tools, in Course Admin, you'll see Calendar, and you'll have the option to add an event. So if we have time at the end of the day or the hour, I can go over that for sure. So I'll add that as a note.
Well, I was going to add, because like this summer, I'm doing an online class, but we have a synchronous Zoom time for an hour. So that I could put in the calendar and then it would show up as an event.
Right.
Okay.
That is true, yeah. And that's actually how we would recommend doing that for the Zooms, because you can see them in the Zoom tool here. Like if students click on that, they can see the recurring synchronous Zoom meetings. But if you want them to the course schedule, then we can definitely show you how to add them to the calendar. Okay. Alrighty. So moving right along, if you have used Moodle before, you will know that Moodle was just like a list of items, a list of content, and you just kind of scrolled on down, and each week or topic was in like its own little block. If you're familiar with that sort of viewing of your content, then the table of contents link on the content tool is actually the closest thing to that. So you can see here, it is called table of contents, but you can see each little module I have already has its own block, and as I add files or content pages to it, they will appear right underneath the little title. You can do some adding of modules here as well. You can also edit pretty much anything about the resources in each module. The only thing you can't really do from table of contents is change the name of modules, and that would be just going to the actual module itself to change the names. For some reason, it just does not let you do it here. But before I go off to a module, I do want to point out some important buttons specific to table of contents. So import course is probably the most popular of the table of contents buttons because it includes the links to copy an existing course and to import a course package. So copying an existing course would be if you had a course in Brightspace from a previous semester that you want to transfer the content over from. So 2021 spring, or even at this point 2020 fall, if you want to copy that course content and bring it over to this current course, you would come to table of contents and then copy existing course. We also have import course package, so if you had a Moodle backup file, this is where you'd go to upload that file. So an example of copy an existing course would just be to click copy existing course. And then what it asks is, where do you want to copy it from? So usually I just kind of hang out in this little tool section right here. The rest of it I have not used really. I'm sure there are use cases for them, but really if you're just copying from a previous Brightspace course, you want to stay up here with copy components from another org unit. And really all that means is copying components from a previous class. So org units are courses. So under course to copy, you click search for offering, and then it brings up this little box where you just use search terms to look for your class. And it should be fairly easy because you only can search for courses that you have faculty access to. So usually if you type in the course code like SW and then dash whatever the number is, it'll come up if you had access to that course in a previous semester in Brightspace. For me, it's a little harder because I have all access to all courses all of the time. So I usually have to be a bit more specific. But when you search with the search term, you usually come up with plenty of options. You want to pay special attention to the semester it's for. So this one's for 2020 summer 2, so it's a bit old. You know, you could do some summer 2 2021, things like that. But you would just click the button next to the one you want, and it would add to your copy area here. And if this doesn't look right for some reason, you could always exit out and try it again. But essentially, without going all the way through it and copying someone's social work course, you would see your course to copy right here. And if you just want to copy everything over, including like assignments and discussions and gradebook settings and all of that fun stuff, you would click Copy All Components in the bottom left. And then it just goes to town and starts copying everything over. If you want to select certain components, that would be this gray button right here. And it will show you a list of all of your options, like all the different tools that you can copy from. So that would include like content tool, assignments tool, discussions tool. They're all separate. So usually what I end up doing is kind of copying everything anyway and just deleting what I don't want, because if you start selecting things individually, it might not work out as well. It depends on what you're copying. But if you have any questions when you are copying any components, feel free to reach out to me if you are confused on how things will come over. I'm happy to help out. If you do end up having an issue where the copied components are not what you wanted at all, or it was a completely different course, there is a way to, combat that. I will tell you real quick. If you click on Tools and then Course Admin, it'll show you all of the tools for your course. And within this list of tools, you should see, where is it? Course Reset, that's what it is. So if you wanted to just clear your course of any content, like you messed it up, or maybe you copied the wrong course over, you just click Course Reset and it will walk you through just deleting the current course content in the section that you are in. So that's a good little fail-safe in case you copy the wrong stuff over. You could always start over again. Are there any questions about the copying or resetting of your course? All right. Well, that was a little aside that I, wasn't sure I'd talk about, but I'm glad we did, because I'm sure it's going to come up at some point in the future for many of us.
We appreciate the exit ramp, Riley. That's an exit ramp, and I love exit ramps when it comes to this stuff. Thank you.
You're welcome. I too love exit ramps. Like a little bungee cord underneath so we can move on without too much worry. But that is essentially the table of contents import course button. We also have bulk edit, which is just a bulk edit of all of your course modules. And this is kind of similar to the Moodle button to like turn on editing, because that was a button that we used to use. It's similar to that, but it just kind of lets you edit properties like right there in place on table of contents. It's really only good though for like adding dates and restrictions, adding descriptions, and then once you have resources, you can then go in and like hide them individually and things like that. I usually like doing this within the context of a module instead of just overall in table of contents, but there's definitely a use for this if you just kind of want to go through and just add descriptions to everything instead of clicking on it on the left. But this is more useful when we have resources, and I do not yet, so we might come back to that. And then related tools, I don't really play around with this section too much, but it is available, and other such. So any questions about table of contents so far? Alrighty. So moving right along to the actual like meat and potatoes of your course, that would be modules. So modules in Brightspace are similar to weeks in Moodle. It's just how you sort out your course. So if you feel like you're going to be doing a topics-based course where you're just going to talk about one thing for like a week and a half and then talk about something else, that might be how you sort out your modules. Or if you do the traditional like week 1 through 15, that's also a great way to do modules as well. So what you do is you'll start with absolutely nothing, and you can start from the bottom if you have no previously copied over content. And you can just click Add a Module, and it will say well, it'll give you a blank area and you could just type in the name of your module. So maybe I'll put in week 2. I'm just coming up with this randomly. And once you type in your module name, you can just click the Enter key on your keyboard, and it kind of solidifies it and adds it to your course. So if you screw up the name and you want to change it, that's no big deal. You just click on your module, and you'll be able to come right up here to the top, and you can just click on the name to change it. So you'll find throughout Brightspace, if you hover over something and it turns like this weird like blue in the background or this weird gray, that means you can click on it to edit it. So here with week 2, I could just click on it and it lets me change the text. And I can, retype what I had or type something new and just click the Enter key again and it'll bring up your text. But that highlight is very good to look out for, because as we work down the module, you'll see that Add Dates and Restrictions gets that little highlight, and Add a Description also does. So if I click on Add Dates and Restrictions, it gives me more options. And it's kind of weird because it looks like the same text as if you were typing your own, so I can see where that's confusing. But if you just look for that highlight, you'll be able to click on it and then edit accordingly. So I clicked on that Add Dates and Restrictions area, and these are kind of useful and completely optional, but for every module you can create a start date, a due date, or an end date, and it'll sort of communicate to the students when you will be covering that content. Or it'll also indicate in the course schedule when you'll be covering that content. So because we assign a date to things, it'll show up in the course schedule. So maybe something you'd want to do with this is, if you are doing like a week-to-week sort of thing, if you want to prevent students from like really moving forward without everyone else, you can add a start date to it. And what that does is it kind of restricts access to the content until that date passes. So you can still see the names of the content that you have in here, but students will not be able to click on it until that date and time occurs. So it's useful in some ways, but also if you have students who do like to work ahead because they need to, they won't be able to do that. So the start and end dates are really indicative of availability, and that means when the start date occurs, they can start looking and interacting at content, and when the end date occurs, they can no longer even see the module. So what we recommend instead is, if you're using dates, make sure to use the due date, because that indicates when that stuff is due, but it does not take away access from the content. So if you're doing something that has a cumulative final, you will not want to use an end date, because then they won't be able to see it anymore. So I'm going to add a start date to here just so you could see what it looks like. For my week 2, I guess we'll go off the kind of current course schedule that Marywood has. So I'll click on Add Start Date, and it'll open up like a little calendar picker and some times. So if I click on the start date, I can then pick from my little calendar, and I'll say August 30th. And then I can change the time, and I probably would, because right now it's saying 2 o'clock, and it's kind of an interesting time to start it. But if you do have class at like 3 o'clock and you'd like them to start looking at stuff beforehand, maybe you'd want to be more specific with it. But I'll change it to 12:01, so right as the 30th of August starts, they can look at this content. And then for my due date, I'm going to put it as the 5th of September at, all the way down, 11:59. So I'm not going to put an end date on it because I still want them to be able to view it after the due date. So I'm going to click Update, and then those dates appear at the top for me, so they can say when it's due and when it starts. I'm not really sure why the due date comes before the start date, but that's neither here nor there. And then you could also see on the left, it puts begins August 30th underneath the name of the module. So that shows the students that, it starts on August 30th, and it also shows you that you put a date on it. So then I think if we go to the course schedule, it's weird. It starts back in 2020. It's obvious I did trainings all the way back then. But you can see all the way down here at the bottom of my course schedule that it's due on September 5th, and that's the date it's giving it because it's due that day, and it starts on August 30th. So it does end up showing up in there, but it does kind of do it based on due date. So just keep that in mind. Are there any questions about the dates in modules? Okay. I also want to mention that you can put due dates, obviously, on assignments and things like that, but you could also put availability dates on assignments and discussions individually instead of just putting it on the whole module. So that's something to keep in mind. But if you did want to do it so that students know when things begin, then that's a good way to go. But also in this date area, there is this release conditions. So something with release conditions that I mentioned last week is that you can do it based on certain criteria. So say if a student visited like the syllabus, they can then go on to the rest of the course or something like that. I know Kat Fisney does that with her courses. She has like an academic or like something pledge. And if the students interact with the pledge, they can then go on to the rest of the course. But unless they finish the pledge, they cannot look at anything else. So you can really lock down your content in that way. But before we even do that, we would need to put in some content so you can base it off of something. So I will come back to this once we add a file so that I could show you what it looks like. But just so you know, you can create them from scratch for pretty much anything, whether it is a module or an assignment or a quiz. You can really add release conditions to just about anything. So once you create them, you can just browse for them so you can see what other ones you've made. If you want to just keep using the same one, you can click browse and look at your previous release conditions. So I'm just going to click update to get out of that little date area, but I just wanted to make that known. So right underneath our little times and dates here, we have added description. So if you click on it, it gives you a nice little text box, and it gives you all the options that you can see from any other sort of text box in Brightspace. So any email, any announcements that you do, they have the same text box here. So we have our little paragraph styles, headings 1, 2, 3, and 4, as I have discussed. But we also have some other things at the end here, like insert stuff, and we have quick links as well. Insert stuff is that button where we have all of our fun content, like adding files from our computer or adding video notes where we can actually record the videos, and I discussed that last week. We can also search for YouTube videos from here, and we can insert links. We can do H5P, which I will talk about the closer we get to the fall. But that is all in the Insert Stuff button. And then quick links, once we start adding some content, we can actually link to other things like announcements and assignments. We can even link to any calendar events. So if we end up creating a calendar event for our Zoom meeting, we can then link to that calendar event. We can also link to any sort of discussions or self-enrollment groups, which we will talk about a little bit later if we have the time. And then you can just add it to your description so students can click on that to access that particular content. So it's kind of nice once you get your course all sorted out, you can then add these quick links in wherever you want, whether it's an announcement or here in the course module description. Do we have any questions about that? Alrighty. So moving right along, I think what we should do is actually create some content, maybe upload some files so I could show you how to actually put stuff in your course. So for that, I'm actually going to hop over to my upload and create button up here in the middle of my module. So you can also see this from the table of contents area, as we did see. So you can upload and create from here. But personally, I just like coming down here to the individual modules and creating within them because I feel like it's a little more organized from my standpoint. I feel like I might get a little lost in table of contents. So what you can do is you click on upload and create. Oh, you're muted, Sister Nancy. Yeah, sorry.
There we go. Could you start from that again? Show me where the upload and create button is, because I couldn't see it.
Yeah, sure. You just have to click on a module in your course. So if you created one already, you just click on it along the left side, and then you should see that blue button in the center.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, sure. So you just click on your blue upload create button, and you have like a lot of things to click on. We're really only going to focus on these top 4. So that is upload files, video or audio, create a file, and create a link. The ones down here, you can actually do from the individual tools. So next week, we will be looking at assignment, discussion, and quiz. And surveys are the same as quizzes, just anonymous. So we will be talking about those next week. But we are going to be talking about these first 4. So we'll start with the easy ones. Upload files is probably the one you'll be using the most, because when you click on it, you can then search your computer for any files you want to upload. So whether that is your syllabus or any PowerPoint presentations or articles that you found, those would be uploaded files. So I'm going to look on my computer, maybe click upload, and then you can just kind of search your computer. So it does require you knowing where your things are so you can pull from them. So I think maybe what I'll do here is click on test doc. And you'll see once you double click on it, it adds to your little box here so you can see what you're going to upload. So just like with the copying of an existing course, if this is not the file you want, just feel free to click the X button and then click upload again to find another one. So it's not a big deal. If you initially click the wrong one, you can always start over. And you could always delete it too. So you do not have...
Those uploads take a long time and you have to be careful to let it finish uploading.
Yes, that is true. If it's a video, it definitely takes a bit. And if you interrupt it, it does get upset. So it is good to keep that in mind. Luckily, the Word docs, depending on how long they are, do not take nearly as long, but it's still good to let them update. And that is actually a good point, Leah, because with those longer files, or bigger files rather, you might see a green progress bar happen behind the actual document name. And in that case, you let that finish. And then once that is done, you will see it kind of linked here and you'll know it's finished. But because this is so small, it took like no time. I do want to say, do not click choose destination. It doesn't matter. I know it's a fancy looking button, so some people think it's important, but do not worry about it. You just click add, and then that file will then upload. And I have actually uploaded this before, but I'm just gonna, you won't see that usually. But once it uploads, it does put it here in your module, and it pastes it at the bottom of whatever list you already have. So if I were to upload another file, it would put it below test doc 1, just because it puts everything new at the bottom. But that being said, it's easy to sort of rearrange everything. You just look out for these little drag handles. So that's like the 2x4 little dotted area to the left of any resource or any module, really. You can just click and drag that to move it around the module. So if you wanted something at the top that is previously at the bottom, you could just grab this little icon and just move it up and down. Makes more sense when there's more things in here. Also, when you upload things, and even when you add like assignments or other such, you will see this little check mark all the way over on the right. This is actually what fills up those circles in the course content at a glance. And by default, everything is automatically required. So that just means a student has to click on it in order for them to complete it. If you wanted to change that though, like if it's a document that is sort of an optional resource and you don't really need them to look at it, but it's good if they do, you can always click on it to change the kind of level of requirement that there is. So by default, it's automatic. But then if you want them to sort of manually check it off as they finish it, you can say required manual. And Moodle also had a similar tool set that they used. The manual option would let them click it off themselves. And then if you look at it again, there's a not required at all, which just gives like this little dash. And that means it's still there for them to view, but it doesn't inhibit their circles at all in the course content at a glance. So even if they don't look at it, they'll still get 100% on their circle if they did everything else. So, are there any questions about activity completion? Alrighty. Okay, so we have one of our resources, one of our uploaded documents. And as you may have noticed before, there was also, like when you're in a module for the first time, it'll say drag and drop files to create and update topics. You can always just open up your little file picker and drag it up here and it'll do the same thing. It'll just upload and it'll be there for you. But personally, I like to do the upload, create, and then upload files, just so I could pick out the file I want, and it's all very, easy to do. Then as you're going down the list, there is video or audio, and this is actually a good one for if you're uploading like a Zoom recording. I'm pretty sure you could also just upload a Zoom recording from the upload files area, but you can do it from video or audio just by clicking on that. And you get the option to either put a URL for the video. So I guess if you're looking at like YouTube, if you want to add a YouTube video, you can just grab that URL and just put it right in here. Or you could click on upload on the right and upload your own video file. And you can see down here, it lets you upload up to 2 gigabytes, which is pretty big. And that means that your uploads may take a while, but they will actually happen. You just have to wait. So with the Zoom recordings, I know in the past, Kat Fisney did upload like an hour and a half and it worked. So you should be able to just upload them directly to Brightspace. But if you find that it is too big, usually what we end up recommending is uploading it to Google Drive and grabbing the shareable link for that. And if you need help with that, please just reach out to the help desk and I'll be happy to help you out. But for most things, you should be able to download it, or rather upload it without any issues.
So,
yeah.
Riley, you said YouTube here, but I've been doing YouTube under a link, which is one of the other, it doesn't matter. Okay. No. And then under the link, it says open as an external resource. I thought there was something about, right, it says user progress is not tracked for external resources. So does that mean that it's not tracking when they open them as an external in that percentage thing?
I think so. I think that's what that means.
I think so too.
Yeah. I think if it was not going to inhibit it at all, it wouldn't say anything. But I think, if you have to make it an external resource, it's not going to track it. But some websites do need to be.
Right. And that's what the students have told me, is that when they try and open things like that within Brightspace, that sometimes it doesn't work as well as when they open it as an external resource. It's like opening up another tab of the web page, and it works better.
Yeah, exactly. So that does bring me to the next thing, create a link. And I'll use the Marywood website because everyone knows what that is. But when you go to upload and create and then create a link here, it opens up just 2 little fields. So the title could be whatever you want it to appear on the page. So maybe I'll say Marywood homepage. Then the URL, you usually paste whatever URL you want here. So if that is like a Google Sheet or maybe a website for something else, you can just copy and paste that URL right here. But I'm going to type it in because it's a fairly easy one to remember. But what Leo was talking about is this open as external resource area, and it is by default checked. So that just means when students click on the link for it, it's going to open up in a separate tab. And that is like the foolproof way to include links in your course, because it's always going to work. At least you hope so. But it's always going to work. The only thing that's wrong with it is that it does not track user progress. So it should not contribute to their circles. So in this case, I'm going to leave it as an external resource, but you can always change it. So I'm going to click create.
That's the error thing. When you do something wrong, it's very nice to you and gives you these errors.
Yeah, that is true. It does want your HTTPs. So if you did copy and paste, those are built in, but it's chastising me for not doing that. So I made this an external resource, which just means that when I create it, it brings me right to the Brightspace version of the page. So I will show you what it actually looks like when you click on it. So let me go back in my content here and give you a learning moment. When you click on any resource, you will see this little breadcrumb trail along the top. You just click on either the table of contents to go all the way back, or you click on the module name to just go back to the module. So that's what I'm going to do. And zoom out once more. So I have my Marywood homepage link, and I click on it, and it opens up in a new tab, as we said. So that just means it's an external resource. It's not opening up within Brightspace. So if I come back here, it shows that I am on the link, but it's, you know, in a new window. Students will also see this, but they just kind of keep it here so that they can go back within the course without having to reopen Brightspace. But you can also see, if you click Edit Link here, you can change it to open within Brightspace. But they do recommend opening them in new windows. So that's only because some websites do not mesh well with Brightspace at all, and it'll give them an error message when they try to open it. So I always recommend testing out your links in Brightspace before you actually, like, you know, tell students to go clicking on them, just in case it doesn't work.
And the other reason why is if you open it within Brightspace, it becomes that tab. And so they are no longer in Brightspace. So that happens for me because I put the Zoom link in an announcement. And so when you not in a link like this, it's just embedded like in the announcement.
Right.
So when they click on the Zoom link, it refreshes the page, like it closes Brightspace. And so in order to get back to Brightspace, they have to reopen Brightspace.
So is that when you not have it as an external resource?
Exactly.
Because I think it opens up within Brightspace if it's allowed to. I mean,
so if it's not an external, it opens. No, I just have it as a link embedded in an announcement. So it opens Zinc and it opens Zoom and takes over Brightspace.
Oh, okay. I see.
Sounds like it sounds like the external way is the way to go. Is that?
It is. Yeah, for sure.
Good
But
to
the
know.
problem with that is it doesn't tell you then if they've opened it, because it
That's
doesn't show you as completed. So if you're
Right.
trying to track whether they opened your videos,
Yeah.
you can't track it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would then recommend for your links that maybe to sort of counteract that, so students aren't like, why did I not finish the module? You can click on that little check mark again and just say it's not required, even though maybe it is. So just to sort of, you know, put them at ease. But links are still a good way to go. It's just that external resource is definitely something to keep checked. And if you do find that it comes up as an error, you can always edit the link just by either clicking on the link in Brightspace and seeing that edit link button, or clicking on the context menu, as we said is like the gateway to all settings for everything. If you click on that context menu, you can then edit it here as well. There's edit link in the middle. So things to keep in mind.
What does required manual do though?
Required manual is like the student version. So I guess they could also do that, where if you clicked that, the students would then see, like, I think maybe an empty checkbox over here, but it's very visible, kind of like in Moodle, where you could just click on it and then it's done. So that is a good option, actually, if you would rather them just have the manual check mark, so they could still say they looked at it, but it's on the student's, you know, responsibility to actually check that off. So you could track it in that way, I guess. Are there any questions about any of that?
And I think, Riley, that if you go to open that link again, no, not the actual link, like the setup. Yeah, right there. If you click on completion summary.
Yeah.
So I think there it still will tell you if they opened it, but I'm not sure.
Right. I'm not sure either, to be completely fair. With everything else, it will say if students have interacted with it, but that's kind of a thing we were going to go over 2 weeks from now in the course management sort of thing. But it is a list of students in your course and whether they've actually touched the link or the resource, file, activity, whatever it is. So it's nice to see who has finished it, who has not. But I'm not sure how it works with the manual requirements and with the no requirements at all. So I'll have to look into that. But it's definitely useful. So let me think here. So we did like 3 out of the 4 that I mentioned. The links, while very useful, can just be a little bit interesting as well. The Word docs and any other files are nice and easy, though I do want to mention, I totally forgot, if you do have a document or like a PowerPoint and you go to view it in Brightspace, it is going to bring up a sort of preview of it. And depending on how long or how big the file is, it may take a little bit for the preview to come up. But once it does it the first time, it kind of knows what it looks like. So in this sort of document, I do not have a lot of formatting in it, so it's not that big of a deal. It looks completely fine, exactly how it does in Word. But for some things like a PowerPoint presentation where you have like text boxes in different places or images like all over, it might alter your formatting. So in that case, what I recommend for like PowerPoints and even some Word docs is to save them as PDF files so that when you upload them to Brightspace, it retains the formatting. For something so simple as like just text on a page, it doesn't matter. But if you're doing something with like images and like tables and funky formatting, I would definitely save it as a PDF before uploading it to Brightspace. So just wanted to bring that up. And while we're in here, I know we're a little all over the place today, but while we're in here, there's a bookmark icon up here that we talked about. This is what adds it to the bookmarks area in your content tool. So if I click on add bookmark, it says bookmark added successfully. And then if I click on my content once more, in bookmarks, it says I have one. And then here's my bookmark. It's the thing I bookmarked just now. And I can just click on this context menu to remove it whenever I need to. So it's something you can point out to your students so they can kind of keep a log of things they want to go back and look at if they didn't get it the first time. But it's a nice handy little area of the course. Nice thing to look at. So I don't think we're going to get to groups today considering we're at 2:44, 2:45, but we are going to look at creating a file, which is our last of the 4 items in this upload create button. So in here, when we click create a file, it actually lets you start from scratch and create a file, essentially. So it brings up a nice big blank text box, and you can give it a title. So maybe this is something like Introduction to the Course. Or it could even be something like an instructor bio or something like that. Now, the cool thing about these course files is that you can either just kind of do your own thing in the text box and just type away, use headings, images, stuff like that, or you can select a document template and use some templates that we have installed in here as well. So it's kind of hard to imagine what these look like without actually clicking on them. So what I recommend is looking at the different titles and seeing what appeals to you. So in this case, we have anything from like intros to a video page where you could have multiple videos. You can do like one with an image that's large on the right. They kind of sound like PowerPoint layouts, but you kind of get the idea. One of my favorite ones to use though is all the way at the top, and it is just the course introduction. So if I click on it, it brings up this page with like an image in the background, and it has this funky like text box in the front. And it has this replace string as the title. So if you remember from last week when I did the replace string with my name and put like my name on the course banner, this is the same idea. So luckily with this one, it kind of just puts it in for you, which means it's going to pull from your course name. So you could either let it be that way, so it just pulls whatever your course name is, or you can just say welcome to, and then put whatever course name you want. So it's really completely editable. You can change anything on these templates. Obviously, you can change the text here because it's all in, fake Latin. You could even change the images in the background too if you want something a little more specific to your content. So these templates are really great, and they're a great way to chunk out content and like add videos and talk about concepts without just giving a wall of text on your modules. Now, something I want to warn against is working within a template and then realizing you don't like the template anymore. So when you try to change your templates, you'll see what happens in just a second. Maybe I want this module intro instead. So what it's going to do is replace your existing content with a new template. So it's just going to cut everything out and put the new template in instead, and then you have to kind of start from scratch. So kind of play around with the different ones and make sure you found the one you like before you start working within it so that you keep all of your content. So this one is a little more fleshed out than the last one. It has a module introduction sort of header, and then it lets you like type whatever you like in here. And then it has some learning objectives. But I know some instructors use this learning objectives area of this template to sort of outline what the students are expected to do that week or in that module. So maybe number 1 is check out this resource on X, Y, and Z. Number 2 is complete the quiz, things like that. And that's kind of nice as well because you can use that quick links option and you can link to anything else in your course. So once you start creating these pages, you can link to assignments that you've created, you can link to resources that are already in the course. And actually, I think I might do that. So I'm going to backspace and just start from scratch here. So maybe I want to say refer to the syllabus, and I know I didn't name it syllabus, so I'm going to give it like a parenthesis. So what you would do to add a quick link is be wherever you want it to be on the page, and then click quick link up here at the top. And as we've seen, here's all of our stuff. But because it's a resource and not any like assignment or anything like that, it's going to be in content. So if I click on content, it gives me my different modules. So I have all 3 of mine. And if I click on syllabus, I know maybe I don't have something in there. Maybe it's in week 2. Nope. It's in week 1. So if I click on the module I actually have stuff in, I can link to any of this stuff. So I have that link to the Marywood homepage, and I have this document. So I'll click on this, and there it is. So when I publish this page, students can click on that link, and it'll bring them right to that document. So it's a good way to kind of redirect them to where they're supposed to go. But usually being in the content tool is good enough to sort of walk them through the flow of your course. But this is just another way to redirect them to where you want them to go. Are there any questions about any templates or content pages? You could use them as much or as little as you want. They're just an option, really. But I will say that once you do save and close it, it appears on your page just as you like. Apparently this one had an image, but I did not see it when I was editing it, but there is an image. So this is how it looks like on the Brightspace course. It's got a nice little banner in the background. It has our text that I didn't really change, and then we have our little quick link here as well. So if I click on that quick link, it brings me right to that page in Brightspace in my course, and then that student has essentially completed that resource because they clicked on it, and now they're in Brightspace looking at it. So again, nice way to redirect. So any questions about anything we've talked about so far today? I feel like I ran out of time. I'm really sorry. I was going to go over groups, but I think we'll push that off until maybe the last week. And maybe it's for the better, honestly.
Yeah, there was a lot of material today. I just have to go through and keep hitting things to see what.
Trust me, that's exactly how you
hope it doesn't explode in the process.
Well, you could always reset the course if you need to, Sister Nancy.
Oh, that may happen quite a bit.
They don't let you. They don't limit you on how many times you can reset it.
Oh, good.
But I guess in the last 9 minutes, because I did say I might do it, we can add an event to the calendar and see what that looks like. So if you want to add an event to your course calendar, I think the best way to do it is probably to go to Tools and then to Course Admin, because that gives you all the tools for your course. And then Calendar is about, the 3rd line down. So if you click on Calendar, it does look a bit different here because it gives you sort of a monthly or weekly, daily view, and it shows you all of your courses. So a student can also look at this tool and see all of their courses and due dates. And essentially what you can do here is create an event with the blue button there. And it lets you enter an event title. So maybe this is Zoom for week 1, or maybe just Zoom for the fall 21 semester, because, maybe it's recurring. And then in the description, you could just put that, invite from the Zoom tool. You can just kind of copy and paste the link for your Zoom right in here in the description. And then you can say the attendees are like everyone in the course offering or something like that. And because we did it from the course we're in, it's just going to correlate to that course. So as I scroll down, you can say like when it is. So if it is all day, you can say that. Or if it's just a, you know, maybe every Monday or something. Every Monday at 2 p.m. until maybe 3 p.m. You just kind of click around and change it. That's when our Zoom is. And then you can add a recurrence. So it's, you know, maybe every week. And then once you click create, it just kind of shows up. So I will do that. So I created an event. It starts in August. And of course, it's like not here, but I know it is. I'm going to go back to my content and see if it's in the course schedule. Scroll past all my 2020s. There's a lot in here. So yeah, it appears in my course. I don't know why it didn't appear in the calendar, but it's here. And that means it'll appear for your students too. So all that to say, if you go to course admin and then calendar and create event, as long as you access the calendar from the course you're in, it'll be for that course. So that's a nice thing you can do if you have an event that you want to set up that's outside of like an assignment or something like that. Like maybe there's like a movie screening that is like a bonus item for your course and you want to link to it or link to the banner. You can add that to your calendar if you like. It's just in that course admin area and then calendar.